Alright, so now we're going to get into groups, regular expression groups. So groups allow us to pull out sections of a match and we can store those sections or groups. Essentially what groups allows us to do is instead of getting the entire output or the entire match, we could actually just get portions or sections of the match and output that. Or we could actually store them as variables. So I'm going to give you a bunch of examples, and as we do examples, you'll get a much better understanding of what groups are and how we can utilize them. Alright, so let's just get started here. I've created a very contrived example. The string is it's a pretty long sentence, so let's just take a look at it. John has 6 cats, but I think my friend Susan has 3 dogs and Mike has 8 fishes. So I purposely made the sentence the way it is to give us an example that will help better clarify the usage of groups. Okay, so now I've created a regular expression here, and what I want to do is I want to pull out the name and the number of dogs or number of pets they have. So I want to pull out the name, the number of pets they have, and the type of pet. So essentially what I'm trying to pull out is this portion. John has 6 cats, Susan has 3 dogs, and Mike has 8 fishes. So I've used this regular expression to pull that out. So this pattern looks for a capital letter or a non-capital letter followed by a space, followed by either characters or numbers, followed by numbers, followed by either character or number. So this is the pattern. This is essentially a sentence structure. So it's going to be a bunch of letters followed by more letters or more letters or numbers followed by numbers. So it has to be something like word, word, number, word. And by using this pattern, this a regular expression, we can actually pull out the sentences that I wanted to pull out. So let's just take a look. If we run this, oops, I forgot to actually import. Here we go. Now if we run this, alright, so we're able to pull out the sentences I want, which was the name, the amount of pets they have, and the type of pet they own. So now, so we've pulled out these 3 sentences, and now I'm going to show you how we can use groups to actually just pull out portions of our output. So groups allow us to pull out sections of a match, not the entire match, but we could pull out sections of a match. And we can use those sections to do many things. We could save them as variables, we can use them with other groups, and do a whole bunch of different things. So, okay, so let's just dive into how we can express groups. So groups are a meta character expressed by 2 brackets, an open bracket and a closed bracket. So this is used to express groups. Okay, and so now I'm going to actually show you guys with RE_FIND_ALL. I'm going to run the same expression, regular expression, but this time I'm going to put groups around the first expression. So I'm going to put groups, 2 brackets. I'm going to put 2 brackets around the first custom set, this portion. I'm going to put 2 brackets around this portion. So that's going to denote a group. So putting brackets around the first custom set is going to denote a group, and this group is actually part of this entire regular expression. So this is one group, but the entire regular expression is this whole entire thing. So now, if I run this, you're going to see something strange, but it's only pulling out the names. So essentially, the output we're getting is just this group. So everything that's been grouped gets outputted when using re.findAll. So that's the thing with re.findAll. That's one of its characteristics, that if there are groups present in your regular expression, it is going to pull out the group only. It is only going to output the group. So in this case, instead of outputting the entire regular expression, the entire pattern, it's only outputting the group. And that is a characteristic of re.findAll, and that's a characteristic that you guys should keep in mind when using groups and re.findAll. Alright, so this first re.findAll, by putting groups around the first portion, we're essentially just pulling out these parts, John, Susan, Mike. So we're essentially just pulling out the names. We can actually create different parts of this pattern into groups. So if you wanted to just pull out the the types of animals, we can actually group the last part or the last character set. So we put 2 brackets here, and this will allow us to pull out the types of animals. And here we get cats, dogs, and fishes. So groups, they allow us to output the string or the subsection we want. So by using this pattern, we're essentially creating these, we're just pulling out these strings that has all the information we want, and then we can use groups to actually pull out the subsection of that pattern. So here we're going to make 3 groups, re.findAll, group 1, group 2, and group 3, and this is going to pull out all of the information we wanted as tuples. So John 6 cats, Susan 3 dogs, Mike 8 fishes. So essentially we have all the information we want, but it's being outputted as tuples. Now with findAll, we don't have much of an option to do anything else in terms of groups. re.findAll is very limited. To actually pull out, say we have this information, we've outputted all the names, numbers, and pets. Now say we want to group them together. So in our case, say we want to just group all these names together, or group all the numbers together, or group all the types of animals together. We can't do that with re.findAll, but we can actually use some string manipulation or Python methods to take care of that. So let me just run this. Okay, so I'm going to run the same code as above, but I'm going to save it to a variable called info. Okay, so I'm going to run info, and now we saved it to this variable info. Now just to show you guys that this info has the same data as above, I'm going to run this info, and as you can see, it has the 3 tuples. And now by using the Python zip method, so you see this zip method here, we can actually put together all the names into one group, all the numbers into another group, and all the animals into another group. So essentially what zip is doing is it's taking the sort of the index number. So of each tuple, it's going to group together all the index 0s, then all the index 1s, and then all the index 2s together and create 3 new tuples. So I'm not really going to go into the details of zip, but essentially what you need to do is if you have multiple tuples, you want to use this asterisk and the list. So if your list contains multiple tuples or multiple lists, what you want to do is use the asterisk and then use info, or use the name of the list. In our case, it's info, and then you use zip on that. So it's zip asterisk info, and since zip actually does not output a result, I'm assuming it's an iterator of some sort. What you need to do is you need to run list on it. So you essentially convert it to a list, and you get the output that you want. So if I run this, I bunch together all the names, I bunch together all the numbers, and I bunch together all of the animals. So this is one way to, if you want to put together all the names or put together all the numbers or pets together, this is one way you could do that. This is because re.findAll is limited in terms of the methods we have, and I'm going to show you now with search, all the different methods with search. Okay. So now we're going to do the same thing with search, but you guys have to remember with search, we only pull out the first instance of our pattern, of our matching pattern. So in this case, we're using the same pattern as above, 3 groups, but we're only going to pull out the first instance. So let me just run this, and we're going to save this to match. So I'm going to save this to to a variable called match. So let me just run this. Okay, if I run match, you can see it's a match object spanning from 0 to 15, and we pull out John has 6 cats. So unlike findAll, it doesn't pull out the groups, it pulls out the entire string, the entire match. So instead of just pulling out the groups, 1, 2, 3, it pulled out the entire match. So now I'm going to show you a bunch of methods. So match has a bunch of methods associated with it that findAll actually doesn't have. So when you use re.search and you get a match object, you have a bunch of methods that you can use. And the first thing I'm going to show you is a group. So we've used group before, and remember the default attribute is 0. So group essentially pulls out the match. So in this case, it's going to pull out the entire match. So if we run this, we get the match that we got here, which is essentially the match that we made. Now, it also has something called groups. So match.groups will pull out all of the groups from the match. So in our case, we have 3 different groups. So even though match.0 seems like a group, it's not actually a group. It's just the entire match. Our groups, on the other hand, are these 3 parts that are located within brackets. So if I run this, we should get those 3 groups that we created within the pattern. So if I run, I get John, 6, and cats. So it's essentially pulling out the groups, the same thing we pulled out with re.findAll. So now the groups have also numbers associated with it. So group 0, this is why I stressed the importance of group 0 in the early videos. Group 0 is the entire match. Then we have group 1, group 2, group 3, going from left to right. So the first group is this, second group is this, third group is this. So let's just call these groups. Group 1, John, group 2, 6, and we can actually call multiple groups at the same time. So group 1 and 3, John and cats, and we can actually, call any number of groups and in any order. We can change the order from backwards. In this case, we have group 3, 2, 1, 1. So this is the order, and it returns a tuple, cat, 6, John, John. Now, a couple of other methods I wanted to go over. Span. I didn't get a chance to go over span, but span is essentially the same thing as start and end. So when we have a match, we have a start and we have an end. 2 different methods, but span actually includes both of those methods. So let me just run this. 0 to 15. So essentially it's this. Span equals this. So this is a method if you want to get the beginning of the string and the end of the string. The index of the beginning and the end of the string. Okay. Now the next thing is we can actually get the span of groups. Okay. So here we're just pulling out the span of group 0 essentially. So group 0 is the entire string. Now if you wanted to get the span of group 2, so the group 2 is 6. So John has 6 cats. So remember this 6. So this was the beginning of the string. If you look at the string, let's just run this. Okay. So John has 6 cats was at the beginning of the string. Now let's see. Okay, let's just run the span for group 2. So 9 and 10. So it starts at 9 and ends at 10. So group 2 is the 6. So let's just go back to the original string and count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So from 9 to 10. So it essentially gives us the index of a group. Okay, so match.span, and then you can put the group number as an argument. So you can put the 2 as an argument, and that will pull out the span of group number 2. So if you want the span of group number 3, same thing, 11 to 15. And if you guys check, it matches. And if you just want the start, we could also use start and end. And remember, this is the group number. So match.start of group number 3. So as you can see, there's a litany of different methods associated with search that findAll doesn't have. findAll doesn't have any of these things. So here I'm just going to show you the same thing with findAll, but we just can't do it. So findAll has no group function. So I have 3 groups here with findAll. If I want to pull out group 1, can't. I get an error. List object has no attribute group. Okay. So now I'm just going to actually run findAll again and show you that we actually have 3 items within this list. So even if I pull out the first item through slicing, so as you can see, if I pull out the first item, it's not a list anymore. Earlier we had a problem that list doesn't have the attribute group. Now I got rid of the list and I'm just getting output of this. So I'm taking the first element from the list. However, even that doesn't have a group. So if I wanted the group 1, in this case group 1 would be John. If I wanted to pull out just John, I couldn't do that. See? Can't do that. So findAll doesn't have groups, but there's actually some workarounds around this, and I'm going to show you that. But the first thing I want to show you is how to pull out a match. Remember, re.findAll, so if we run this, only pulls out the groups, as we went over a little earlier. re.findAll only pulls out the groups. It doesn't pull out the entire match. So this is the entire match. Now, if you wanted to actually pull out the entire match, what you can do is you can make the entire match a group. So let me explain that to you. So here I put two brackets around the entire match. See these two brackets? Okay, so we have all these subgroups, and then we have another group. Essentially, I'm creating another group. So I'm making the entire match another group. We have three different, three small groups, and then we have one huge group that contains all three of the small groups. So by creating one main group around the entire pattern, we can actually pull out the entire pattern as well. So here we're just pulling out John 6 cats, and we're skipping out this portion. See this this portion here, because it was not included within the brackets. What you can do is you can just put two brackets around the whole pattern and pull out the entire pattern. So I'm going to run this now, and let's take a look at data. So here we go. So the entire pattern, John has 6 cats, and then we have the subgroups. So we have the main group, and then we have the subgroups. So essentially we have 4 groups now instead of 3. And using some list slicing or tuple slicing, we could actually pull out whatever info we want. So here, for I in data, we're just slicing through each of these elements, 1, 2, 3. So for I will be this, then I will be this, then I will be this through each iteration. We can pull out any of these sections. So for each I, we can slice it a little further. So if I just wanted to pull out John has 6 cats, Susan has 3 dogs, if I wanted to pull out the entire strings, I can do so with this iteration. Or if I just wanted to pull out the animals, so this would be 0, 1, 2, 3, I can use I and slice the third element, and we get the animals. This is how we can use re.findAll despite the lack of methods and attributes associated with re.findAll. Now, I actually want to show you actually a different way to pull out multiple items. re.findAll is very useful to pull out multiple instances. And re.search and re.match, you can only pull out the first instance. Now, there's actually something in between, and it's an iterator. And I've gone over iterators in one of my videos describing what iterables are and what iterators are under the Python concepts. I'll be sure to include that playlist in my description. I'm not going to go too much into what iterators are. I'll just give you a brief overview. Iterators essentially put out the results one by one. So it's similar to find all, but instead of putting out all the items at one time, you put out the results one by one. So if you want more details as to what iterators are, please check out the video. But in this case, there's a method called findIter. So re.findIter is going to find all the instances of our pattern, and we can iterate through all the instances, and we can actually use the match methods or the search methods, because each iteration is going to pull out a match object. So it's the same thing as find all, but instead of finding a list of 3 items, we're going to find the match objects, and we're able to iterate through each of the matches. So let me just show you guys what I mean. Okay, so it's going to create an iterator, it, and the method we're using is findIter. We're looking for this pattern within the string above. So I run this, and now if you guys know about iterators, you can use next to iterate through the iterator. And I'm going to just use .group, because remember, .group pulls out the match. So we're essentially using all of the match and search methods. In this case, .group is going to pull out the match, and the match is this thing here. So if I use .group and run this, okay, so John has 6 cats. If I run this again, Susan has 3 dogs. Remember, we're iterating through it. And Mike has 8 fishes, and that should be the end. So if I run this again, stop iteration. So it's done. You get a stop iteration error. So that's one way you can actually pull out the outputs. But remember, you can use, let me just run this again. You can use something like next, you can use groups. You can use anything you want, any of the match or search methods, because the iterator is actually is outputting a match object or a search object. So you have access to all the match and search methods. Okay, so if you guys know iterators, you can exhaust an iterator, of course, through a for loop. So for loop will go through all of the iterations. So let me just run this again. And here we're going to pull out element. So for each match object, we're going to pull out the first, third, and second group. So if if I run this, it should give us an output. It should pull out the first, third, and second groups of all of the matches. So if I run this, John, cats, dog, 6. So first group, third group, second group, first group, third group, second group, first group, third group, second group, and of course we can. Let me just run this again, and we can use group to pull out group 0. So this is the original pattern, entire pattern. Susan has 3 dogs. We can actually also pull out all the groups. Here we go. So let's pull out all the groups. John, 6 cats, and Susan, 3 dogs. And so this is very similar to the find all, where it's find all essentially just outputs the groups and only the groups. Okay. So the only thing you have to remember that Iterator is exhaust. So if I run this, try to run this again, we get no output because the iterator has exhausted. So whenever an iterator is exhausted, you have to create a new iterator object, which I'm doing by just running this again. And if we go back down and we run this, you'll see that I'm able to output everything again. So yeah, but that's just something that if you guys understand iterators, if you guys know iterators, that's something you guys already know. All right, so this was just a nice introduction to groups and some of the methods associated with group. And there's still a lot more we have to cover regarding groups. So in the next video, I think I want to go over a quantifier. So we're going to be using quantifiers with groups, or quantifiers on groups. So yeah, so I'll see you guys in the next video.